afternoon. My name is Marc Grabowski, and I'm the Global Vice President of Oracle Advertising. And I'm here with a very special guest today. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Marc. Hi, my name is Andy Kauffman, SVP of Marketing Strategy and Sciences at the National Football League.
Andy, thanks so much for being here today.
It's awesome to be here.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. We were speaking a little bit last week, and we were covering off on a couple of things like the growth of the game, the growth of audiences, and how the National Football League has changed over the last couple of years. How many years have you been with the NFL?
Yeah, I'm just finishing up my third season with the league.
So a lot of things have changed since then. I think that we start to know the players a lot more. The fan base has grown massively. The globalization of the game it's unparalleled to anything that I've seen in other sports or other events in general. So one of the things I want to hear a bit about is how you've started to look at expanding the fan base, bringing in new fans, whether they're in the U.S. or outside of the U.S.
Sure. Well, first, I have to say it's an incredible honor to work for the NFL. The breadth of our fan base, the passion of our fan base, we were talking about it last week, is like no other brand on earth, and I feel incredibly fortunate to do so. Here in the U.S., more than 70% of the population ages 8 and up are NFL fans. That is the largest fan base of any sport, but it's not just the size, it's the quality of the fan base and the level of their engagement. We also have the most avid fans, and what we've seen over the last few years is their consumption of the game, as we call it, watching games, playing fantasy, engaging in social about our players has skyrocketed. So we've grown our fan base and we've increased our consumption at the same time. That's a great formula. Now that's here in the US. At the same time though, the population in the US is changing. What we see is the Latino population, if you forecast over the next 10 years, I believe it's 50% of the population growth comes from Latinos here in the US. They tend to under-index in terms of their NFL fandom. Similarly, while we have the largest fan base in sports of women, we slightly under-index the total population of women, so there's opportunity there. And clearly, if you take that intersection, it all counts to youth. Mm-hmm. And youth and how they learn the game, how they consume the game. And so that's our sort of moment right now, which is we're in an incredible position of strength. And rather than just saying, yep, we're good, let's ride this out, we're looking towards the future to say, where do we need to invest here in the US? And then where do we invest internationally as well? So then
let's break down a couple of those different categories. So how are you bringing more women into the game? And also then we can talk about youth after that as well.
Yeah, first and foremost, as I mentioned before, we have the largest population of women sports fans. Mm-hmm. I believe it's 47% of our fans are women versus, let's call it 51% of the U.S. population. So slightly under indexed, but if we can move that, obviously a point is a significant amount of fans. We have a whole strategy around making the game more accessible. First and foremost, the way you do that is by getting people to play the game. And that's where flag football comes in. Our stats are very clear. If you can get someone to play the game before they turn 18, they're orders of magnitude more likely to be a fan for life. They understand the game, they have a passion for the game, they have a history for the game, and they engage at a level that is orders of magnitude more. Flag football gives us a platform to not just engage boys, but to engage girls in ways that tackle hasn't historically done. So that's one. The second is about making the game not just about the game. And that's an interesting way to say our helmets off strategy. Our players are incredible human beings, incredible athletes on the field, and incredible human beings off the field. We want to showcase our players for the incredible work that they do, and also the passion that they have and their passion points. Why? Those are the same as our fans do. And what we found is by engaging a helmets off strategy and showcasing what they do off the field, connecting to fashion and music and their passion points, is actually bringing in a new set of fans that tend to even be more women and tend to then see something they like and they learn about the players and they then see the game, they start to learn the game and they love the game, and then it takes off from there.
So that makes sense from a strategy standpoint. Then how do you execute that? So helmets off strategy, I understand get people to know the players more, get them to know their personalities, who they are on the field and off the field. But how are you actually doing that? What are the types of assets that you're creating? Where are you showing those assets?
Yeah, so social is a huge piece of it, right? And when you look at where younger people engage, obviously TikTok and Instagram become incredibly important platforms, and Snap from that standpoint as well. And so we have an incredible social team. I've worked other places, and we thought we were pretty good at social. Then I came to the NFL, and our team is top notch. It's a newsroom type environment, delivering more than 1,500 pieces of content every week. Now that content can span highlights from games, it can also span helmets off, it can also span tune-in ads and where you watch the game, where you watch the playoffs, and so forth. And so if you take that and you develop content with our players, we publish that through our league channels. We also give those packages to the players for them to publish on their own channels. The clubs, the teams, will also do the same. And then what we also find is we give that package to, let's say that college player went to the University of Michigan. We'll give that package to the Michigan social team. They'll then post it on their channels, and they see some of the best engagement possible. And so it creates this massive ecosystem of engagement with content tailored for the platforms.
So that's an amazing distribution strategy, and the content syndication that goes into that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of technology that has to get built on that. I mean, there's the entertaining, fun part of the game that we can talk about, but then that distribution piece. How are you making sure that the right assets go to the right team, to the right school, and to manage the data rights for all of that? I mean, that seems like a pretty big ball to unravel in the first place.
It is indeed. The word I use is ecosystem, because that's really what it is. It's an ecosystem of the league, of our clubs, of our players, of universities, of our partners, all surrounded by a set of content to engage our fans. And so if I take that back, it starts with the fan, right? We started here. We have an incredible breadth of fans here in North America, around the world. And increasingly, as their engagement changes with us, we've talked about social. Obviously, they're shifting much more to digital means than linear and the like. It's also important to understand who they are. And we have a strategy around personalizing more and more for our fans, whether they choose to engage on our platforms or on our partners' platforms. And it's a very simple formula. It starts with, we call it see, know, and engage, right? That's the formula for our one-to-one fan engagement, where we truly know the fan. We see them through their data. We build models to understand propensities and their history. And then we engage with them across channels. That can be NFL.com, the NFL app, email, SMS, push notifications, or any of our club channels. Those are the most intimate channels of engagement where we can really get down at that personal level. You connect that with our partners, and now you start going segmented and mass, but it all works together to deliver a more relevant and personalized experience for our fans.
Say that again. See, know,
see, know, and engage.
See, know, right? And engage.
A lot of companies think about see and know, and then engage is over here. Right, and you have a marketing team and the MarTech that is building out all these capabilities, and you have a data team that's siloed away. We have an initiative since I've joined 3 years ago that I co-lead with our chief data officer. We are hand in hand. It's with the data team, the marketing team, and the technology team to create this model that basically says, how do we gather the data? How do we create a single view of the fan? That single view of the fan is not for the league versus one of the 32 teams. It's a single view of the fan across what we say is the power of 33, all 33 entities, the 32 teams plus a league. One view of the fan, then build the models on top of that to understand predictive behaviors where we can, to then channel those signals out into the points of engagement and engage them in an omni-channel way. I kind of think about that engagement as like a conversation, right? We're having a conversation here. Next time we see each other, hope we don't start over. Hopefully we pick up from where we left off.
It's iterative.
Yeah, it's iterative. That's not how marketing has historically worked. Marketing's been, I have something to say as the marketer, I'm going to push it to you, right? Now with our strategy, and the technology we have and the data flows that we have and sort of this omni-channel orchestration, we're able to say, what do we know about that fan? What do we know that's important to us? What's the most relevant thing to put in front of them? And how do I choose that based off of what they just saw a few minutes ago or the last touch point we saw with them? And in doing so, you're building that ongoing conversation that only fuels a better relationship with the fan.
So if I were to summarize, you've got this see, know, and engage platform where you have all these data assets that come together in a single point. You've got a governance layer that then determines who can utilize that and how they can utilize it, and then an orchestration layer that basically acts like the traffic cop to distribute.
Yeah, you got it. Data, marketing governance, right, which includes a lot around frequency management. Sure. What are the use cases when we talk about it as like who leads versus who amplifies. So what are the use cases where the league might be the lead, but you might amplify it through a club's channel? That might be an email they send, that might be just the next time you open up one of the team apps. And then that orchestration sort of brings it all together. And then you have the actual channels of engagement that sit on top of the orchestration.
The applications.
The applications themselves, right? What we've done is, rather than choose a single technology all the way through that stack, we recognize the complexity of our environment. We also recognize that our teams have made technology investments. We've made technology investments. And you're not going to all of a sudden say, scrap it all, start over. So we took a very realistic, we solved the data, we built an orchestration layer, and then we created the integrations of all of the existing email platforms, SMS platforms, personalization into the apps and sites, and the orchestration is sort of what brings it all together to make it all work.
So it probably goes unsaid saying that you need people to spend time, watch the games, to engage, and that's obviously increased a ton this year. There have been two things I've really noticed this year. The first is games seem to be more engaging all the way through. I don't find myself at halftime saying, all right, I'll go out for a run now. I'll do something different.
Well, we appreciate that.
And I'm curious if there's any kind of data that shows that the games are becoming more and more engaging, because I feel like there's, they're getting down to the last minutes and I still care.
Yeah.
Is that real?
It's absolutely. I mean, one of the coolest things about working at the NFL is when we get to talk football. Right. I love my job as a marketer. I love all the stuff we're talking about, the data technology. I've been doing that for years. But I'm a fan, just like anybody else. And so when we get to talk football and we see the quality of the game getting better, it gets us more excited because that just translates to better engagement. So I'll give you a few stats. One, we like to say no game is ever over, right? And the stats bear out. I believe the stat is a little bit more than 70% of our games this season, in the regular season, have entered the fourth quarter with a score differential of 7 points or less.
So I was right. My assessment that it still matters in the fourth quarter.
And how many times are we seeing these last-minute drives and these miraculous? It comes down, and the quality of the game has never been better. And on top of that, your understanding of the players and who they are, and the storylines through these games. Just look at what's coming this weekend with the playoffs. So many storylines, right? Has only increased because the access to content has increased. And I think it's a combination of both. The game has never been better, and the storylines better than ever. And that combination is, it's the greatest show on earth.
Have you changed the way that you've done the scheduling? Is that one of the
things? Yeah, so the schedule, and I don't work in scheduling, but I get to work with the teams. The schedule has absolutely been changing over time. One thing that's talked about a lot is the divisional games being towards the end. So, like this past weekend, the final playoff spots were finalized at the end of game 272 on Sunday Night Football, which is the last game of the season, right? The 2 and 7 were chosen in the AFC. That is incredible, right? So you look at, I believe it was after week 17, so we had 2 games after week 16. 26 teams were still potentially and still in the hunt.
Yeah.
And so that's incredible. So the quality of the game is better, schedule's optimized. And in doing so, what we also do is sometimes we flex games and move them because they're incredible matchups that we want the world to see. make no mistake, we want as many fans to have access to the best games possible, and that only fuels more engagement.
Well, it seems like you've been bringing in some new fans, and one specifically around Kansas City. I've got to bring up Taylor Swift. I mean, there's been an impact here.
It's incredible.
I mean, it's a global impact that it seems like seeing, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, and bringing in a new set of fans as well. Can you talk a little bit about, how you're able to leverage that, and then what you're able to do with that after? I mean, that's striking gold, and that's great luck. But then you're able to harness that and then utilize that for other type of content.
Yeah, the really exciting thing, and you're absolutely right. It's an incredible opportunity for us, and one that we don't take lightly. But at the same time, it is our influencer marketing strategy. We didn't seek out Taylor. Obviously, an incredible relationship, and our social team learned when she attended the first game. A little bit notice beyond the rest of the world, but not much. But we're prepared for that because we do it every week. Maybe not on the scale of Taylor Swift, but we engage influencers, they're fans first and foremost. The beautiful thing is when our influencers engage with our content, they do it authentically because they're fans. And I think that's what you're seeing with Taylor that is so powerful, right? When they cut to her reaction to a great play, you see her light up and the joy in her eyes. And she even said, how did it, paraphrasing, but how did I not have football earlier in my life, right? That's incredible for us. But then what we do with that first game, our social team very authentically engaged around it. Why? Because they're fans of hers too. So changing the meme to NFL Taylor's version and being a little bit playful. It's a combination of being timely and playful, yet strategic at the same time. And then also knowing when to back off and let it happen organically, which we've since done. And now the work begins on, and my team's doing this work now where we're doing deeper research to understand if Taylor may have brought in a fan who wasn't a fan, or a new fan, or a casual fan who just didn't watch. What did they see that they liked? That I can then work with them and market and engage with them back on the relationship, see, know, and engage, and create lasting fandom out of that. And so our casual fans move up that avidity curve, and the new fans become casual fans. But ultimately, it really is a strategy around acquire and then engage and then fuel that relationship.
And it seems like you're at the top of the game. I mean, it's you've been there for 3 years. The NFL has just continued to grow, bring on more fans, become more engaging. Where do you go from here? What does winning look like after this?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is, we don't rest on our laurels. We don't, while we're certainly blessed to be in a very, very strong position, you don't necessarily feel like we're just sitting back and going, okay, we're good. Instead, we're looking towards the future. We understand, and this was actually hard to do internally, to say, look, for as strong as we are right now, here's where we have potential vulnerabilities or opportunities as the makeup of America changes. And then as you look even more globally, what that looks like. So I would say it goes back to those growth audiences. And it goes back to our globalization of the game and our expansion, which we're excited to take a game to Brazil next year for the first time, and we're doubling down on a lot of markets around the world.
I look forward to seeing that expansion. It seems like it's going the right direction, and look forward to the next 3 years being fantastic and fascinating as well.
Thank you.
Andy, thanks so much again for coming today.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.